Hello, we are going to start with our human anatomy notes. So if you go to Canvas, Science, the modules, the week, and go to today, you will see a place to open your notes. My notes are just fill in the blank. Most of it's already written for you, but you have to have the correct word, just like a movie paper. You have to have the correct word. You can't just guess and put something in there. It should be read when you type it in, so please leave it read when you type it in. Okay, we're going to start with the skeletal system. I'm hoping to get through the entire skeletal system in one video. And by the way, there's all the way over to the right, there's a column that says color on the diagrams. Don't worry about that. When we do this project or this unit in class, I will give you a piece of paper that has diagrams on it, and I would tell you to color the mandible blue and the cranium green, but we're not going to be able to do that because we're not here to color them or to give you a paper to color on. So we're going to have to do it a different way. Anyway, the first one is the cranium. Now we are doing the skeletal system first. So all of the body systems in this video today, you can fill in skeletal because we're doing the skeleton today or in this particular video. All right, so the first one's the cranium. It says round bones surrounding the brain, many bones fused together to form the cranium, and the function is it protects your brain from harm. Now, the cranium is this rounded area of your skull up here. It's made of several bones that probably have fused together for most of you. When you're born, there is on the top of your head, there are three bones that have not gotten together. So you would have a hole about the size of a quarter in your bone when you're born. And that is so when you come through the birth canal, your head can squash a little bit. And then in the first couple months of life, that grows shut. So when you're messing with a baby that's, probably less than 3 or 4 months old, you need to be careful because there's nothing protecting the top of the baby's brain but some membranes between the skin and the brain. Okay, the next one is the maxilla. Again, it's skeletal. All these are going to be skeletal. That's the upper lip bone, and it holds your upper teeth. The upper lip bone is what's under your nose and holds these teeth right here. That's called the maxilla. The mandible is the next one, skeletal. It's the jawbone. It's this bone right here that moves when you chew. And I actually have a piece of a goat mandible right here. It would attach to the skull right up here, and it would allow it to do this when it chews. But it's still got the teeth in it. And then I've got a maxilla as well. You can see this bone. You can see how it's fused right here in the upper teeth right here. This goes here. I know it seems weird that I've got real bones, but I live on a farm, so I find dead animals all the time. Anyway, all kinds of animals, whether it be opossums or raccoons, or I found a dead goat, that kind of stuff. Anyway, the next one is a vertebrae, and I have a ton of vertebrae because a vertebrae, this is I believe this is a goat vertebrae. This is just one, and you have a bunch of them. There would be another one very similar to this sitting right on top of it, and there'd be a little squishy pad between here called a disc. That's the reason your backbone flexes, because it's not solid bone. It's a little piece of bone and then a squishy pad, and then a piece of bone, then a squishy pad. And you can see the hole in it right here. That's the spinal cord goes through there. And then between each pad, you'll have nerves coming out. So when that pad swells and presses against the nerve, it can be very painful. I have some other bones that are, these are several vertebrae from, I think, an opossum. But you can see how they would sit on top of each other and there'd be a pad inside. And when you put them all together, they'd make a big, long vertebrae. It's a stack of vertebrae make up the spine. It flexes and holds the body upright. Each one has a hole for the spinal cord. The clavicle, the clavicle. Oh, and by the way, I forgot to show you the vertebrae. All these are stacks. You can only see parts of are stacks of the vertebrae. They go from your pelvis all the way up to your skull. The clavicle is the collarbone. It's this bone right here. And it supports your shoulder. The scapula is your shoulder blade. It's actually in the back, but you can see it here from the front. You can see your scapula on both sides from the front. It's the shoulder blade in the back, and it supports your shoulder. You have a bunch of ribs. They're skeletal, of course. Several ribs make a rib cage, is what's going to be on the next page. It's just, I haven't got there yet. And it protects the lung and heart. A lot of your vital organs are inside that cage, and it's supposed to help them from getting squashed. But you can see some of the ribs go from the spine all the way around to this bone, which we'll get to later. Some of them, like these in the back, are called floating ribs. They're not really supported, and they're easily broken. But that's what your rib cage is. Let me, if you missed something, just watch the video again. Let's see. Okay. The next one is the sternum. The sternum. The bone in the center front of the rib cage. That's this one right here. It's like in front of your heart. Back in the old days, they used to saw right through that when they did open heart surgery, and they'd crank your rib cage open to get in there. That'd be awful. The recovery time was long. It says allows ribs to flex so you can breathe. That connection here allows some flexation. If your ribs can't flex, then you can't breathe, which is why usually when you break a bone, doctors will isolate, or they will make it so the bone can't move so it can heal. But if you made your ribs so they can't move, then you would suffocate. So ribs are very difficult to heal. The humerus is the next one, and again, all these are skeletal. All the systems are skeletal. The humerus, and notice how it's spelled. It's not spelled like something that's funny. It's the upper arm. I'm not sure why there's not a important anatomy, but the upper arm, this is your humerus right here, and you obviously have two of them. There's a ball at one end to go into a socket into your scapula. The radius, you have two bones in your lower arm. Many animals do. That makes it so your hand can do this. If you only had one bone, your hand could not do this. They twist around each other. The radius is the lower arm bone, and it says there are two lower arm bones so you can twist your hand, and the radius is the larger of the two. And I will tell you, sometimes in pictures like this one, it's really hard to determine which one's bigger. So generally I will say, where's the radius and ulna? Something like that, because unless the diagram is clear and shows one clearly bigger than the other. The ulna is the smaller of the two. It's the one that makes this little bump right here on your wrist, right here. The skeletal system, it's the smaller lower arm bone. We're going down the arms here. Carpals, those are wrist bones. Wrist bones, and an adult has 8 wrist bones. They are right here. They look like they're part of the palm, but they're actually part of the wrist. And they're called carpals. Now the metacarpals are the hand bones, the bones that go down your hand. You have these straight bones. If you really flex it, you can really see those bones. And that's these longer bones right here. Those are called metacarpals, and they're hand bones, not finger bones. We're going to get to the finger bones in a bit. I'm going to skip that for now. Let me move this up a little as much as I can. It looks like you can still see it. Okay, the pelvis is this bone right here. It literally goes, and things can go through that hole, like your rectum where you poop goes out through that hole. Women have a larger hole there than men because a baby has to pass through that hole. So when they find bodies out somewhere, they can determine pretty quickly if they're male or female by looking at the opening of the pelvis. A circular bone that's at the base of the spine at your butt. It supports your body. It has a joint in front. This right here, there's a joint right here in your pelvis. And pregnant women, that it's kind of amazing, I think. That joint, it's fleshy and it dissolves during pregnancy so that your pelvis can stretch out. And then when your pregnancy's over, it grows back. That's one of the reasons they say that pregnant women are clumsy, is because their pelvis is no longer set and stationary. It can go like this, and it makes them fall down, and they tend to be clumsy. Coccyx, that is your tailbone. That would be you go follow your pin all the way down the spine, and it's going to be the point of your spine right here. If you've ever fell and landed like in a sitting position and it's like, ouch, that's probably because you cracked your coccyx or your tailbone. It says tailbone at the bottom end of your spine. We just have a couple more. We got a few more. Okay, femur. Femur, skeletal like all the rest of them. Largest bone in your human body, and it's your upper leg. The femur is pretty amazing. This is the femur of a deer. I found this out in my woods. And what's amazing about it, I wish I could get it all, I guess it is kind of all on the frame. See if I can get it to sit here. That's a femur of a deer. This is the femur of a raccoon. They both have the ball at the top, and they both have these two little things that you can, your knee goes to. Somewhere around here, I got the femur of a chicken. It's right here. Again, it's got the ball at the top and those two little notches for your knee bone. So all three of those animals, their femurs are very much alike. And I think that is absolutely fascinating, that even though those animals are so different, their bone structure can be extremely similar. But femur, this is the largest bone in the body. It has a ball at the top that fits into this ball socket, and then it's got a groove down here that keeps your knee going straight. A ball socket allows the bone to turn in all directions. A joint like your knee only lets your knee bend in one direction. It doesn't feel very good when your knee bends backwards, or sideways for that matter. Tibia, there's two bones in the bottom of the leg. I've never seen a diagram that it's not easy, that it's hard to tell the difference. The big bone is the fibula, the small bone is the tibia. So the tibia says larger lower leg bone. There are two lower leg bones allowing your foot to twist, just like your hand. The fibula, smaller leg bone. The patella is your kneecap. It says babies do not have kneecaps. They develop kneecaps later. That's the reason babies can crawl real fast across hardwood floors, and you try to do it and you're like, ow, because you've grown kneecaps. Tarsals. Tarsals are the bones in the ankles, just like the carpals are the ones in the wrist. The tarsals are these bones here in the ankles. And then you have long, skinny bones in your feet called metatarsals, the bones of the foot, not the toes. Oh, and by the way, ankle bones, there are 7. That's what that said on tarsals. And metatarsals, bones on the foot, not toes. Now, phalanges, there was a reason I waited, because phalanges are the finger bones and the toe bones. And if you look at your fingers, bend one, you've got 3 sections of finger. So these last 3 bones are phalanges, not these. Those would be the metacarpals. Down here, if you bend a toe, you'll see how many joints you have there. So the toe bones would be the tarsals. Then you have, the toe bones would be the phalanges, and then you'd have the metatarsals across the fronts of your feet, and then the tarsals, which are your ankles. And I always remember carpals and tarsals. Tarsals, toes. They start with a T. So the T ones, the metatarsals, the tarsals start with a T, like toes. Okay, so we are done with the skeletal system. Part 2 will start on esophagus.